Why do we repeatedly punish those who do the right thing to reward those who do not? Whether it's corporate bailouts, mortgage bailouts, or the anticipated need one day for a state bailout, these programs all reward bad behavior while punishing those who did the right thing. We'll discuss the latest example of this next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there again, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. Glad you could join me. This is where we read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. I'm glad you could be here. As always, I'm going to point you to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Find out what's going on. Find out where I'm going to be speaking. If you would like me to come to speak at one of your events, hey, just go to the website. There is under a request a speaker form. Just let me know the who, what, where, and when. We'll see what we can make happen. I want to thank those who work really hard to share these messages across YouTube and across Facebook and across all the social media, because it's the spreading of this message I think will make a difference in this nation. You know, I see and hear and read a lot of people who know there's a problem, and many of them even have a good idea of how it might be fixed, but I think it's really the reading and the studying of the Constitution that will help protect our rights, protect the rights of our neighbors and of our family, and ultimately, that's what this is all about. Now, as I said, we seem to have a habit in this nation of rewarding bad behavior and punishing good behavior to do it. Then the latest example of pandering and bribery out of Washington, presidential candidate Bernie Sanders wants the American people to pay off $1.6 trillion, that's with a T, $1.6 trillion worth of student loans. Describing his proposal, Bernie Sanders says, in a generation hard hit by Wall Street crash of 2008, it forgives all student debt and ends the absurdity of sentencing an entire generation to a lifetime of debt for the crime of getting a college education. You know, there's just one little problem here, Mr. Sanders. Okay, maybe there's three problems here, Mr. Sanders. First, no one forced these students to take out student loans, to borrow that much money to pay for college. They did it quite voluntarily. What you call an absurd sentence, most people call the consequences of their own decisions. If they did not consider the cost-benefit analysis of their student loans beforehand, then the problem is a lack of education, not the debt system. And then, by the way, education is something the government has taken control of for over 70 years. Second, a large part of the reason a college education has gotten so expensive can be laid right at the feet of the very program you want to bail out. See, the cost of college has grown 6 times the rate of inflation. And it all started around the time the government started sticking its fingers into the student loan pie. A coincidence, you say? Possibly. Don't think it's terribly likely, though. And finally, the very act of the federal government inserting itself into the education finance industry is illegal. The very fact the federal government is involved in student loans is illegal. The Constitution does not grant the federal government any power to inject itself into the education of the American people, much less pay for it. So now that Washington has stuck its nose where it doesn't belong and then made a royal mess of everything, they want someone else to pick up the tab for it. And who does Mr. Sanders want to leave this bill with? Well, the American people, of course. Oh, sure. Mr. Sanders says he'll get Wall Street to pay for this plan through a financial transaction tax. However, anyone with a basic knowledge of commerce and economics knows companies don't ultimately pay taxes. They pass those costs on to the consumers, us. So who will pay for Mr. Sanders' boondoggle? Everyone who owns a stock, has a pension plan, or participates in a 401k or similar retirement savings account. In short, just about everybody. If Mr. Sanders gets his way, every time your retirement system makes a transaction, you'll pay a fee so he can get credit for forgiving student loan debt. Isn't that nice? How he would get credit for the work that you've done. And what about those students who were prudent and didn't go into unreasonable debt to get their education? Will they get their student loans paid off as well? See, if Mr. Sanders gets his way, those people who are prudent will be forced to pay for the bad decisions of others. So first they sacrifice, either by foregoing some education or by working to pay for it. Then Mr. Sanders wants them to pay for those who fed at the trough of this federally subsidized program. And after that, there's those of us who, rather than depending on the government, are making arrangements to pay for our own retirement. Is Mr. Sanders really asking us to pay for others' bad decisions in this area too? Yes, he is. Is it any wonder why so many Americans make such rash decisions? They expect the government to get someone else to pay for their mistakes. It's like going to Las Vegas and playing roulette, expecting the house to pay off your losing bets. Only in this example, Washington is the house, and the American people are the ones paying the debt. Why does this keep happening? Greed. Yeah, it's real simple. It's greed. Whether it's the American people who want something for nothing or the politicians whose desire to get credit for something they didn't do. All of this is driven by greed. Students want someone else to pay for their education. Greed. Those who have graduated want someone else to pay off the loan they agreed to and agreed to pay off. Greed. And of course, politicians want credit for fixing a problem while someone else picks up the tab. Greed. Yep, all of this is summed up in that one word, greed. Why else would the American people accept bribes from Washington? Because they are greedy. And they want something for nothing, or they want someone else to pay for it. And why does Washington, and our state capitals for that matter, offer these bribes to us? Because the American people keep taking them. Our greed and our envy are destroying the republic. As Alexis de Tocqueville is quoted as saying, "The American republic will endure until the day Congress discovers that it can bribe the public with the public's money." So how do we restore sanity and honor to Washington and our state houses and the student loan program overall? First, we fire all those greedy people who try to bribe us with our own money. It's not a question of how much you care about others or what policies you support. If it involves taking money from others to pay for what you want, then that greed needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. Any candidate that promises that they will get someone else to pay for something for you should be considered an automatic failure. They should not get a vote. In fact, I hope someone puts together a voter guide showing just how many greedy, self-serving promises political candidates at all levels make. That would certainly narrow down the field, at least for the honest voter. Second, we should extend that automatic failure to all those in elected positions who violate their oath to support the Constitution. I don't care if it's a federal legislator pushing for free health care or a Green New Deal. I don't care if it's a president promising disaster relief or a state official bragging about bringing money in from the federal government to pay for roads and bridges. None of these expenditures are authorized by the Constitution. All of them are illegal, and all should be called what they are: bribery. Plain and simple. Lastly, we must be prepared to take up the slack should we ever get our governments under control. Whether it's helping the homeless, the poor, or taking care of our infrastructure, we need to recognize that if and when we take these programs away from Washington, they will most likely fall on our states and on our charities. Don't expect that by putting Washington back in its box, you'll cut your taxes. Instead, it'll probably transfer much of them from D.C. to your state capital. We should not only be prepared for this shift in burden, but we should work with our state representatives to not only do it more efficiently, but do it better as well. So if you want to stop good people from being punished for others' bad behavior, you can start by not accepting the bribes our political class offers. See, until we wean ourselves from our addiction to other people's money, we will remain susceptible to the siren song of politicians bribing us with our own money. And that, unfortunately, is nothing new. So tell me, what do you think? I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it made you think. We don't really use the terms greed and bribery when talking about political money nowadays, but it's the best way to describe it. Do you have examples of programs that are basically greed and bribery? Put them in the comments below. Or do you have an example of a state that actually has turned away from such greed and bribery? I'd love to see that, definitely in the comments below. Most of all, again, I hope it stopped to make you think. So the next time you see a candidate that's offering to get someone else to pay for something for you, instead of going, oh goody, your first thought will be, uh-oh, maybe someone I shouldn't vote for. Anyway, I hope you found this engaging. I hope that you'll head to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Tell me what you think. Maybe ask a couple of questions. But what I really hope is I get to see you again the next time on the Constitution Study. Thanks.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long